Hello everyone, this is Mr. Brain Junkie here, and today we'll be talking about a fantasy action film called A Writer's Odyssey. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. Somewhere far away in the lands of an ancient city, a little girl's voice can be heard shouting for her father inside the underground caves. A man runs desperately towards the sound of his daughter, but only sees the presence of a deity's aura blocking his way. It turns out that everything was a dream that belongs to a man called Guanling, and his daughter Tangerine has been missing for over 6 years. He waits patiently on the hilltop and eventually sees a truck driving by on the road, causing the man to tremble in fury. The two men in the vehicle drive slowly in the fog, and suddenly, numerous rocks begin to fly towards the truck, breaking the windshields and knocking off the mirrors. It's revealed that Guanling is responsible for the attacks as he throws rocks towards the men in blinding speed, somehow making a curve along the way. The truck crashes towards the side of the road and stops, while Guanling rushes towards the driver, beating him continuously using a stick. He shows the man a picture of his daughter and demands to know where the driver took her, but before the interrogation is over, the second man comes out and knocks Guanling down, giving them a chance to run away. The police arrive soon after and captures the man, confusing Guanling as one of the human traffickers. Luckily, he begins attacking one of the officers when the man was left alone and manages to break free after escaping into a woman's car who seems to have been purposely waiting for him. It turns out that the woman's name is Lin, and she knows every minute details about the man, including his reoccurring dreams about his daughter. She brings Guanling to her office and shows him that they have located 5 different girls who might be the man's daughter using their company's vast resources. Unfortunately, the man can no longer recognize his child after so many years, preventing him to identify his daughter from the pictures. Lin promises to use their DNA technology to find the man's daughter, but she also demands Guanling to complete a task for her superior Lee, who's also the owner of the company. Lin is aware of the man's powers to control projectiles that he throws and wants the man to kill a writer named Khan, who uses himself as the main character for his novel. Apparently, there's an evil deity called Red Ming in the author's book, and every time the character is wounded, her boss also falls into great illness. They tried everything to stop the author from writing the story, but the man refuses to comply, and her boss decided that the only way to end this curse is to end the author's life. Guanling has a hard time believing this ridiculous tale, but he has no choice but to take the deal as he sees no other way in finding his daughter. The man begins to listen to the audiobooks of the author as he travels on boats and realizes that the contents are almost identical to his dreams. In the lands that he sees every time he sleeps, the main character Khan is running away from the bounty hunters who attacks him with supernatural powers. He continues to run despite being heavily wounded, but eventually arrives on the edge of a cliff surrounded by enemies who try to take his life. Luckily, his sister rushes in to the rescue and kills the attackers by using her spear. She tells her brother to run away from the city and pushes him over the cliff, causing the man to fall into the waters below. The woman begins fighting the hunters by herself, slashing at the enemies furiously and dodging their attacks with her amazing agility. She manages to kill many of the soldiers as their leader watches her from a distance and plans to attack. The old man finally charges in and strikes at the woman, knocking her backwards using incredible strength. At the same time, Khan has recovered inside the water, but instead of listening to his sister, the man begins climbing back onto the mountain, unable to leave his family behind. When he finally makes it back on land, Khan sees the sister heavily wounded on the ground, who still tries to protect him by telling him to run. Before the woman can finish talking, the old man steps on her body and stabs her right in the back, killing her in front of her brother. Khan runs to the woman and cries hopelessly as he sees her take the last breath, but soon realizes that the enemy is also heavily damaged by the fight. Apparently, the hunter was hired by the deity called Red Ming, and the man laughs while telling Khan that he has nowhere to run. In a fit of rage, he pulls the spear out from the man's back, causing the hunter to scream in agony. Khan ignores the man's plea for mercy and stabs him right in the heart, finally avenging his sister's death. After burying his family, Khan decides to go after the evil god instead of running like his sister told him, refusing to be the prey anymore. However, before the man leaves, the armor from the hunter's body disassembles and rushes towards Khan, latching onto him like a parasite and sucking into his blood vessels. A horrific eye forms in the center of the armor and reveals that this demon was drinking from the old man's blood before Khan ended his life. The armor finds the man's desire to slay a deity amusing and demands to be a spectator for the journey, as it shows Khan the way way into the Red Mang's temple. At the same time, Guan Ning has arrived in the city where the author resides and eventually finds the man leaving his home. He begins following the writer in order to isolate the man for the kill, but is quickly led to a library instead. With no other choice, he grabs a book and tries to blend in, but Khan has noticed the stalker very quickly as the place is basically empty. The writer walks over and confronts him by questioning his motivations, but Guan Ning is able to react quickly by claiming to be one of the author's fans. Khan is exhilarated by the recognition and begins asking a series of questions about Guan Ning's past, eventually finding out that the man came all the way across the seas. Guan Ning's unexpected appearance has apparently cured the writer's mental block for his new character, and Khan begins writing immediately from the sudden inspiration. He continues the story where the main character is traveling across the great seas, avoiding the monsters in the waters while he heads closer to the deity's temple. Khan eventually arrives inside a city and sees the people celebrating in a festival, where colorful statues are being displayed while the drums are being hammered. Unsure of what's going on, he follows the people into the outer edges of town, where a giant statue of the Red Mang appears in the center. The people begin to worship the deity by bowing continuously, while the statue raises the arm and points towards the neighboring town. To the man's shock, everyone starts taking out their weapons and begins chanting the god's name, preparing to battle their neighbors to death. The demon armor explains that the deity thrives on humanity's suffering and is responsible for destroying most of the cities, leaving only 2 standing. The townsmen begin to charge across the battlefield as the neighboring archers shoot desperately at the invaders, killing many of the people as they fall from the sea of arrows. However, the tides quickly turn when numerous dragons made from hot air balloons appear and heads towards the neighboring town, scaring the archers into shooting aimlessly at the sky. The people on the dragons begin to throw numerous jars of tar onto the enemies below, covering them with extremely flammable materials. Flame arrows are quickly shot by the followers of the evil god, heading towards the enemy's gate and creating a sea of fire. Khan watches in utter disgust as he sees the people screaming while being burned alive, all because of the unholy deity. After the furious battle, the main character walks into the city, only to see the man pillaging and killing everyone in sight. Before he can make sense of this reality, a battle horn sounds from far away, and the people all bow down in fear as multiple knights in crimson armor rush in on their horses. Khan watches while hiding behind the buildings and recognizes their flags as resembling the marks of the hunters, revealing that the knights are disciples of the evil god. The horseman rides away while sounding the horns once again, prompting the people to run in fear as they scream that the curfew is in place. Meanwhile, Guan Ning is trying to lure the author away from the population centers so that he may have a chance to kill the man without being noticed. They head into the abandoned field that's covered in plants, and Khan begins hearing a lullaby from the far distance, while Guan Ning is too tense to notice the music. The author has a sudden inspiration once again after listening to the song, and immediately begins writing a new character that's based on the lyrics. The novel continues as the main character chases recklessly behind the Red Knights and notices a young girl by the alleys trying to save her friend, but upon examination, the boy has died a long time ago. Khan helps the girl bury her friend and learns that the Red Mane disallows anyone to leave their home after sunset, threatening to kill all who disobeys the orders. The girl begins playing the flute in memory of the fallen friend, but the music seems to have attracted the attention of one of the knights, who appears quickly at the graveyard. Thinking that the warrior is here to slay them for disobeying the curfew, Khan quickly runs away with the girl while the knight jumps towards them and chases closely behind. They run into the cities and tries to climb onto the buildings, but the warrior crashes through the barriers with incredible strength and leaps onto the rooftops. Khan tries to carry the girl and run, but the warrior jumps once again and barely misses them while breaking through the ceilings and landing inside the buildings. The knight continues chasing after them as he breaks through the walls like paper, but what he doesn't realize is that Khan plans to trick him by switching the girl using a straw man. The main character jumps down from the buildings and barely misses the attacker, sending him crashing towards the ground. The man continues to run while evading the attacks, but eventually gets trapped by the knight as he grabs onto the decoy, revealing that it's nothing but straws. Khan charges at the enemy and lands a direct hit on the head, but the attack was ineffective as the knight recovers quickly and kicks the man across the field. The warrior pulls out the weapon from his mask and surprisingly reveals Guan Ning's face from underneath. Before the knight can deal the final blow, the girl shouts for him to stop, and the warrior begins turning around, switching the attention to the young child. However, as the sun finally finally sets, the knight begins to act strangely as he loses control of his body, eventually stopping completely, giving Khan the chance to escape with the girl. At the same time, Guanling sneaks behind the author while the man is engulfed in writing the story, but strangely, he begins having visions as if he was chasing the girl in the novel. Khan eventually realizes that his friend is missing, but suddenly gets hit by rocks that knocks him to the ground, causing him to scream in pain. Guanling continues throwing the stones, landing a devastating hit on the writer's forehead, knocking the man into the trenches. He rushes out from behind the buildings and tries to end the man's life, while singing the lullaby for his daughter, trying to justify for his terrible actions. Surprisingly, Guanling begins hearing the same song that Khan was talking about earlier, and realizes that it's the lullaby only his daughter would know. The man runs quickly as he tries to follow the music, eventually arriving back into the city and sees a homeless boy on the ground, going through the garbage while singing the song. Guanling demands to know where he learned to sing the lullaby, but the man's extreme emotions only manages to scare the boy away as they both run desperately in the streets. The man chases furiously behind the boy, but he suddenly begins having the visions again, like he was chasing the young girl in the novels as the Crimson Warrior. Guanling ignores the visions and keeps running, but as the night approaches and the street darkens, he eventually loses track of the young boy as well. With no other choice, he calls the writer to meet up once more so that he can finally finish the job that he started. They meet on the rooftop and the author begins talking about his novel, but surprisingly, Khan reveals that he wrote a new character that's based on Guanling and used the lullaby that he heard earlier to construct the little girl called Tangerine. Shocked at hearing this revelation, Guanling immediately takes the notes and begins reading them, realizing that his visions match perfectly with the Crimson Knight's stories. This means that somehow Khan has created a parallel universe through his writings and made alternative versions of characters from this world, including his own daughter Tangerine. It would also explain why Lee wants to kill the writer, as the novel has the power to affect the events of this world as well. After the epiphany, Guanling calls Lin to tell her that he quit, as he wants Khan to finish the book so that his daughter can be saved in the other world. At the same time, Khan manages to escape the Red Knight alongside the girl, and they continue across the city that contains nothing but suffering. The two eventually arrive inside the girl's home, where Khan learns that her parents have died as well after disobeying the curfew. Before they can rest, numerous followers of the Red Mane rushes inside and tries to pillage the home, robbing everything that they can. Tangerine refuses to let go of her parents' possessions and plans to fight against the evil man while Khan decides to protect the girl no matter the cost. The people charge at them with fury, but suddenly, Khan's demon armor becomes awakened and slashes at the enemies, killing them easily with his sword. The men try to fight back, but the demon strikes at the people using incredible speed, killing them one by one with little efforts as the blood flies everywhere. The monster's body is immune to normal weapons, making the attacks against him useless while he dismantles the people by slashing them continuously. After killing all the enemies, the armor tries to launch at Khan as well, but surprisingly, he's not able to harm the man in any way, as his movements are controlled by the main character. Seeing the demon's evil intent, Khan makes the monster stab himself and forces the creature to kneel down, driving the demon into submission. The armor realizes that Khan's blood which he drank must have celestial origins, and returns onto the man's body, promising to never disobey him again. With the newly obtained ally, Khan decides to head straight for the Red Mane's temple, eventually arriving inside a massive courtyard where they find numerous Crimson Warriors sitting on the ground. Surprised that the enemies did not attack them on sight, Khan approaches the knights carefully and realizes that they're not responsive at all, allowing him to topple many of them as if they're sleeping. It turns out that the purpose of the curfew was to hide the secrets of the Red Knights, as they all become immobile right after sunset. They continue forwards and eventually enters a large building, and Khan shouts for the deity to show himself, but hears no response except for what appears to be drums playing in the background. Suddenly, Tangerine notices something frightening as the giant statue in front of them begins moving, revealing that the drums were actually heartbeats. The giant deity raises the arms while the rocks on his body crumble from the deafening vibrations. He grabs onto a massive stone and throws it at the pillars, blocking the exit so that no one can escape and demonstrating the incredible power that he possesses. The giant deity charges at the two and stares at them closely, while they tremble in fear at the sheer mass of their enemy. Red Mane looks at Khan intriguingly and begins smelling the man like an animal, confirming that he's in fact the son of Tian, his greatest rival and friend. The deity becomes furious at the thought of his nemesis and dares the young man to avenge his father. He offers to show Khan the place that he killed the old man, so that he can kill the son of his rival by using the exact same methods. On the other side, Guan Ling has taken the author back to his home so that the man can finish writing the book, but soon finds a curious picture of Lin's boss Li on top of the shelf. It turns out that Khan's father was the business partner of Li, and the man was supposedly killed during a fatal accident while Li was also present. Guan Ling realizes that Li's true motivations might be more sinister than previously thought, and tells Khan to pack up so that they can go to a safer place. What they don't realize is that Lin has also heard about their conversations and finally becomes aware of her boss's evil intentions to hide the truth about his partner's death, which was likely not an accident after all. Lin calls her boss and demands to know the truth, but the businessman only threatens her as a result, assuring the woman that only bad things can happen to those who betray him. She goes back to her car and throws away the phone, planning to quit as well, but is quickly knocked unconscious by one of Li's men who electrocutes her inside the ring. Meanwhile, Guan Ling takes Khan to the library so that the writer can finish the book while he loads up numerous golf balls and prepares to fight if necessary. Just like he predicted, the assassins from Li follow them to the building and begins attacking the men on sight. Guan Ling is able to trick one of the assassins and lands a direct hit on the man's head, but the attack was ineffective as the enemy manages to recover almost immediately. The electricity man pours water on Guan Ling and shocks him using high voltages, forcing the man to run and tackle the other assassin, knocking them both onto the floor. He continues throwing the golf balls at the assassins, but the electricity man takes a giant fan and charges forwards, trying to slash the man into pieces. Luckily, Guan Ling is able to fend off the two attackers long enough so that he can find the chance to escape from being killed. However, the electricity man soon discovers Guan Ling's whereabouts and corners him with nowhere to run. The assassin approaches closer and tries to make the kill, but surprisingly, when he touches the man, the attack backfires and sends him flying across the room. It turns out that this whole thing was a trap, and Guan Ling has prepared for this ahead of time by insulating his hands. Guan Ling goes back to the lobby and strikes the other man when he's not looking, knocking the assassin onto the ground. Just when he thinks the fight is over, the enemy injects a serum into himself, giving him superhuman strength as he knocks the furnitures flying and jumps out like a beast. The assassin charges at Guan Ling, dodging all the projectiles and punching the man into the walls. Luckily, Lin is able to regain consciousness and free herself as Guan Ling is being tossed around like a ragdoll. Before the man can be killed, the woman jumps onto the assassin and stabs him repeatedly, but the attacks are not effective and she's thrown off very easily. She strikes the man multiple times, but the woman is no match for the assassin's strength as she gets pummeled to the floor as well. In the last moment, Guan Ling takes the golf balls and throws it at the assassin, while the man tries to knock the projectiles away. However, it turns out that Guan Ling threw a trick shot using two balls, and it hits with tremendous power, knocking the enemy out. Meanwhile, in the other world, Khan has followed the red mane into an open field where a giant tree stands in the middle. The deity tells the young man that this is where he murdered Tian, so that he can be reminded every day of his best friend's betrayal. The giant launches towards Khan and attacks using his enormous fist, but the man splits up with the armor and charges towards the god. The two cuts away at the deity's legs, but eventually misses as the red mane demonstrates incredible speed despite his massive size. The giant retaliates immediately and sends Khan flying in the air as he barely dodges the kick. Red mane launches at them once again and creates a massive shockwave, knocking the demon armor across the field. The deity then turns the attention towards the man and attacks viciously, while Khan tries desperately to run for his life. The armor recovers quickly and charges in to help his friend, slashing furiously at the evil god and forcing a temporary stalemate. Khan takes the chance and jumps down from the mountain, trying to strike at the deity from above, but Red Mane is too strong and counters by knocking both of them away. The giant grabs onto Khan and tries to torture the man by squeezing him to death, but the armor manages to throw his weapon and cuts the deity's hand, saving his friend in the last moment. However, the attack only results in angering the god even more, as he grabs onto the demon armor and crushes the creature into nothing but dust. Red Mane turns the attention towards Khan and crushes him slowly by using one finger, but before the man can be killed, the deity hears a song being played by the girl's flute. He walks towards Tangerine and wonders why she's playing music at a time like this, as she's going to be killed very soon. But the girl continues to play as her father told her that he would come if he ever hears her tune. Redmayne becomes angry at the child's persistence and grabs onto her using his tentacles, devouring her completely inside his stomach, but the story pauses right at this moment as the author hesitates about what to write next. However, little does he know that another assassin is sneaking behind him, waiting to strike the man down. Ling hears the struggle upstairs and rushes to help the author, subduing the attacker while Guanling makes it into the room, but they're too late as Con is already heavily wounded. They call the ambulance right away and sends the man to the hospital, but Con's life is now at stake and the book was never finished. To everyone's surprise, Lee arrives into the room and makes the last attempt to bribe the two, offering to give them millions of dollars if they finish off the writer and keep their mouths shut. The man's pathetic attempt at negotiation is quickly rejected by Lin as she knocks him onto the bed and strikes him across the face. With no other choice, Guanling decides to finish the novel himself, trying desperately to save his daughter from the other world. The story continues as Redmayne thinks that he's won the battle, knocking Kong away like a fly and causing the man to spit out blood, but soon begins hearing the music once again as Tangerine continues to play her flute despite being devoured. Suddenly, a cloud of red smoke appears out of nowhere, while Guanling from this universe arrives in the form of the Red Warrior to save his daughter. The man begins firing his Gatling gun towards the evil god, forcing the deity back and destroying his mask. Guanling continues firing at the Redmayne as the giant tries to run for the hills and desperately evade the attacks. Eventually, the god is able to get closer and launches at the Red Knight, knocking the man backwards as he drops the massive gun. However, Guanling is able to recover quickly and leaps towards the sky, jumping down with a devastating strike that cuts off the giant's fingers. Redmayne becomes furious at the mortal and strikes the man using incredible force, sending Guanling flying into the walls as he launches a barrage of punches. After hearing his daughter's cries, the Red Knight gathers all his might and manages to push back the giant's fist, knocking the monster away and running quickly towards the massive tree. Con takes this opportunity and jumps down towards the god, grabbing onto the creature's sword on the forehead and tries desperately to pull it out, realizing that it's the deity's weakness. The giant struggles and tries to stop the man by using his tentacles, but Guanling jumps up and grabs onto the weapon as well, ripping it out from the god's head and cutting him across the body, finally defeating their enemy as Redmayne kneels motionlessly on the ground. The deity throws out the girl from his teeth while the Red Knight catches her in the last moment, revealing that Tangerine is still alive. The girl takes off the warrior's helmet and finally sees her father's face as the two embrace with tears in their eyes. Meanwhile, in the other reality, Guanling has finished writing the novel, and the nurse reveals that Con has survived the wounds on his stomach. The father looks out from the windows and suddenly sees something very important, causing him to immediately run to the outside. The man rushes out from the hospital and sees the homeless boy from before alongside the young girl, prompting the man to begin singing the lullaby as Tangerine slowly turns around, realizing that it's her father. So what do you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked my video, please press like and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys next time.